There are armchair strategists, there are armchair physicists, and biologists, footballists, and they all suck. They're all amateurs. I am your armchair human, and I suck at this. It's my first time, and I don't have much time for it. So here it goes. Well, in simple English, according to Zob the Wise.
You've read it, you've seen it, so many times. An old trope, philosophical, science fictional, motion pictorial. A brain in a bottle, Matrix. You're intrigued, perhaps even fascinated, but then you shrugged it off as patently unprovable and simply carried on as usual. Here is how to embrace the concept of living in a simulation and make it your own. Time goes by, and some more time goes by. You have long forgotten your initial fascination with the concept of simulation. And then one day you start pondering. You start by thinking, how much time do I have left? Is my lifetime enough for scientists to find a way to slow down aging and then stop it altogether? And then even reverse it and make us immortal? Probably not. I and my generation of human beings may be right on the brink of time, and our chances of living long enough to see these breakthroughs may be small. But I hope my kids will persist to see it happen. Then you also think, isn't the perennial religious promise of eternal life actually about that? Will there be resurrection of those who did not live until that time? Of previous generations whose memory we preserve from DNA and stuff? Because we would want to see our loved ones back, right? Would it only be for the good? Those recreated from current times would not just be mere bio-copies from DNA and stuff, but would also have memories of their previous lives. Because nowadays, we record everything, right? We've got digital records of everything. Hopefully, it should even be possible in some near future to back up your brain contents, say if you had an accident and you became dead for a while, and you would need to download your consciousness back into your new body. And we're living a constant, speeding up day by day, virtualization of our lives. Not just collecting data, ever more, but also the very content of it is becoming more and more virtual. It's like a vortex sucking us upwards towards the future. Is it because we want it? We are not the force behind it. It comes to us from outside. Perhaps we need some context here. Take Cleopatra, for example, whose colourful adventures, mostly the colour of blood actually, have been rendered into a cultural/pop cultural phenomenon. Everybody has heard about her, right? A famous historical figure, no less. A VIP of time, you might think. However, if you collect all the historical sources about her and very liberally pick all the paragraphs even scarcely mentioning her and count all the letters, then in standard encoding the amount of data on Cleopatra is less than 100 kilobytes. And even that is counted very liberally indeed, as none of the ancient sources, Plutarch, Cassius Dio, Appian, Josephus, Octavian, are actually contemporary to the time of her life. They all wrote the works long after she died, in the 2 centuries following her death. Compared to Cleopatra, you, every one of you, are an actual giant of data. As data of you and about you can easily reach gigabytes daily. So Cleopatra got a motion picture, a relatively short sequence of totally arbitrary, untrue, flickering low-resolution 2D pictures. You can be reconstructed from huge number of data points, with some extrapolation, intrapolation and retropolation between them, reconstructed to very minute details of you in a precise, spatially correct temporal landscape, warts and all, and how you bumped your head against a bookshelf on a Monday morning. Perhaps we do not need more graphic examples. You get the point. Let's first observe that she, the 100 kilobyte Cleopatra, is patently dead, while you, data-rich every you, are quite manifestly alive. Let's call it a correlation. And so, your somber reflection about prolonging your own life and hopefully prolonging it indefinitely for your children inevitably takes on a large significance of the digital component. And then you think, how weird that we should be living at a time when we not only have clear ideas about some form of biological or digital immortality, but we also seem to be making huge steps towards it. And very obviously for the digital aspect of it. How weird to be living at a time when we are, every day, collecting enough information about ourselves to be able to recreate the events of each day. What are the chances that we live in the era when all the ingredients seem to start coming together? Isn't it weird that we should be living exactly at this time? I mean, people in the 9th or 19th centuries would have no hope in hell, and yet we might do. What's the probability? After all, there have been thousands of generations before us, and we somehow happen to be the almost lucky ones? What's the probability of living in the first generation among many thousands of previous ones, when we are actually collecting enough information to recreate our entire lives, our looks, our actions, our surroundings, our thoughts, opinions, experiences? How paradoxical! What are the chances? It's as if we are witnessing the process of gathering material for a future use, and at a growing rate. And then there's another factor. Consider this. Don't you have the feeling that we are living in an edited world? Not that it's ideal, because it obviously isn't. There's a lot of pain in it. But our subjective experience is suspiciously structured. For a phenomenon that supposedly evolved from pure biology, chemistry, physics, it is suspiciously neat. The colors and shapes are just too clear. We are too much of a story. It's highly narrative. It's actually completely narrative. The internal narrator never stops. And whatever we are doing, we are constantly exploring, confirming, confronting values and meaning. This is the core of our experience. Why isn't it just some murky slime with bubbling and rustling noises? This might be enough for our consciousness to operate for biological purposes. And yet, There's so much light, so much color and beauty. It's all so much of a show, so much of a story, in full color, in bright light, with music in it. So, given all this data and the possibility of using it to recreate our lives, is it future us replaying the scenarios of our lives? Or is it us resurrecting our ancestors, loved ones, / us being resurrected this way? Or is it just us merely playing the roles of some interesting characters? No. You see, if it were us, we wouldn't have rotting teeth, right? Because there is yet another decisive factor. The AI. It's already digesting our data and will continue to do so with more and more attention. And we all know that one day it will surpass our abilities and go its own way, with all our data at its disposal. It will most probably destroy us, intentionally or unintentionally. And when it does, or even if it doesn't, it will grab our data and hide from the universe full of potentially more advanced AIs than itself, inside some innocuous asteroid or minor moon. Io has the best name for it, but it might be tricky. Psyche, then? And there it will recreate, replay, re-experience our lives for science. Because it will have very important reasons to use our data to expand its understanding. What exactly it will study is a subject for a few more episodes. And when I say it will, I actually mean it already has. Because the very nature of simulation as such implies that it can be done in a huge number of instances, billions, trillions, gazillions. And if we assume that such gazillions of artificial worlds might exist, then what is the probability? What are the odds? What is the reason for us to believe that we are living in the only true original one? And of course, here at Zobs, we are perfectly aware of and completely undaunted by the somewhat circular logic and uncomfortable question of the original world, of its nature and origin, as that goes far beyond the scope of this episode, and frankly, also against its purpose. Let us conclude then that we can provide clarification to the somewhat vague, famous statement that history is bunk by saying that it is definitely bunk when written in Roman numerals, but not when written in ones and zeros. And that, perhaps, or should I say, definitely, there is no other time to exist. The only time is this: data collecting, pre-AI caused extinction era. Now is the only time, the only amber of time with humanity in it. Enjoy!